Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. You're watching Women's AM with myself, Adama, and on the panel joining us, we have sisters Liz and Ayan, and we have a special guest on our phone, Naseem Beck, who will be joining us shortly. Moving on now to today's topic, let's go straight to her views, where today we discuss the topic of Valentine's Day. A day highly anticipated by millions all over on what surprises their loved ones will have in store for them. The question of will he, won't he remember to get me flowers floods the minds of many young women, whilst many singletons have the prospect of spending it in front of the TV, watching rom-com movies, dreaming about a perfect Valentine's Day. Love and romance is what Valentine's Day is all about. It is one of the most important days of the year in the modern age all over the world. How should we as Muslims address this day, and what is the message that it sends? We will discuss this and more, but let's have a look at this feature on the matter.
Valentine's Day is becoming increasingly popular observance around the world. It has gained popularity even in many conservative societies. February the 14th sees a boom in the sales of gifts like photo frames, coffee mugs and teddy bears in different shapes and colours.
I have seen a good number of items, but the one I like best for my fiancé is the heart-shaped watch and lovely card, which is so good. And in fact, all the items on display here are so nice that I would like to gift the entire shop to my future husband.
The owner of a shop in India's western Rajkot, Hassan in Johor, said that there were many new gifts for Valentine's Day.
Love quotation book, love book.
This time, the Book of Love quotation that talks about the journey between engagement and wedding, along with the incidents of the first date, music, first movie-related quotes, is a new thing in Rajkot market. Among gifts, there's a bottle with messages that one would wish to convey to a girlfriend or boyfriend.
Like most people in the world, many men and women in India, particularly young couples, now celebrate Valentine's Day in a big way. They dress in fine clothing and show their loved ones how they feel about them. People all over the world put aside one day of the year, February 14th. But is just one day enough to show affection to your loved ones?
Interesting clip.
Yeah, it is an interesting clip, and I think, for me, I think even in my sort of pre-Islamic days, I had a little bit of trouble. Obviously, the sentiment of Valentine's Day, it's a nice one, like spoiling your loved one, and you know, this love that you feel for them, a day to kind of highlight that and all the rest of it. But then when you see things, you know, like in the footage, you know, the coffee mugs and the photo frames,
and the woman who wanted to give the whole shop to her fiance as well.
Yeah, and you know, the much sought after heart-shaped watch.
Yeah.
And, I have a little difficulty translating how, you know, a kind of long-term loving and meaningful relationship kind of translates into these things, you know, but you know, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about this later,
We'll
I guess.
talk about this later, This is a live show. You can join in our discussion by calling in and sharing what you think about Valentine's Day. And if you have any tips on strengthening the husband and wife relationship, the number to call is on the screen. Well, I'm going to start with introduce our guest who's on the phone with us. Assalamu alaikum, Naseem Beck.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. Thank you for joining in on the show. You're the CEO of Personal Match UK, so you would have quite a lot of experience and understanding on this issue. So I'm just going to start with the first question and to round up to start off our discussion. Love and romance is what Valentine's Day is all about. So what's wrong with declaring your love for that one special person?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. You know, husband and wife should show affection on a daily basis. So my opinion is Valentine's Day is just one day out of the year. And, you know, from our Prophet, peace be upon him, who used to show love and affection to his wife every single day and, you know, on a constant basis, is something that should be more thought upon. So this just picking up one day a year, I think it's from Islamic, it's not in the Islamic calendar as well, so I think we all know this, and it does sort of have an impact on people. Maybe they're not in a relationship, and all these flowers and chocolates are flying about, and, you know, it does have sort of a devalued effect on people who are not in a relationship as well, I feel.
That's not actually a very interesting comment that she's made, that the context that we need to be looking at the celebration within the context of Islam. We only have specific festivals, and Ayan, could you enlighten us a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, in Islam that we know, we have two celebrations, and that's the two Eids, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. So that's what we should be celebrating on a larger scale of things. But for me, it's looking at, you know, how Valentine's Day came about. What is it all about? And it was quite interesting because we were having this discussion earlier about the history of Valentine's Day and where it came from. And it was actually a Roman pagan festival that was supposed to celebrate Lupercus, and it was also Lupercalia or something like that. And it was a time of debauchery, a lot of fornication, and a lot of really deviant sort of behaviour, and something that obviously in Islam it's not part of Islam. And then sort of the context from which it came down and how it's evolved now. For me, it's everything has a history, and to know that that's the history that came from Valentine's Day, to me is kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to be taking part in that. And then another thing is, you know, who are you showing that love to? Because a lot of people go through Valentine's Day, like make this huge effort, tend to be people who aren't married. You know, you don't get married couples who go into the same sort of frenzy as people who aren't married, you know, in terms of like rushing to get flowers and doing all of these things. And I don't know, it's not something that, you know, I would want to promote or want to...
No, I think for me, when I think about it, it made me think about the ayah in the Quran that talks about, you know, are you doing something just because you've seen your forefathers do it? And I think we see this with a lot of these festivals. We're so detached from the original meaning, where it actually originates from. As Ayan was saying about this festival, which involved some really disgusting practices. They would sacrifice animals, and actually the men would sacrifice animals and actually whip women with it. So, you know, when you think about where it comes from, you know, Islamically, as Muslims, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're doing things that come from, you know, authentic sources, i.e. from the Quran and the Sunnah. And this is, you know, not that at all.
This is something a bit deviant, isn't it? It's a bit off course. Well, it's quite interesting that Sister Naseem mentioned the effect that Valentine's Day can have on people who aren't married, and Ayan mentioned the fact that it's mostly unmarried couples that tend to sort of celebrate this a little bit more and tend to have a lot more love and enthusiasm for this day. How can having this one day in the year to celebrate your love for your spouse have an effect on your marriage? How does that come about, Mrs. Liz?
I think for me, it's really, I don't think it's a healthy way to look at your relationship. So it's almost, you know, every other day doesn't really matter, as long as you can make this one big gesture on Valentine's Day. It can kind of make everything okay again. You know, what we need to be looking for is a kind of sustained a healthy relationship between two people where you respect one another, you love one another, and you do things for each other because you want to, not because it's February the 14th and tradition dictates that on this day you do something nice for somebody. And actually, I think as a Muslim, as I've said, you know, we have issues with it. But actually, if you look at wider society, Valentine's Day isn't exactly a loved festival out there. I was reading this article in the Huffington Post. It's a bit old now, but this article basically says, allow me to grossly generalise, or more precisely, genderalise. And it goes on to talk about the different ways that men and women look at Valentine's Day. And for women, it's about how much does he love me, and how much he loves me is going to be exactly proportionate to what he buys me, or what he gets for me, or what he does for me on this day. And for a man, they're thinking, oh my gosh, what can I do? What can I buy? But, you know, and the reason for that is because they know there's some kind of a payoff for what they do. And in the article, he says what the ladies like to call intimacy. And I think this kind of payoff, you know, like exchange and reward for certain things within a marriage, it's distasteful, not to mention contrary, obviously, to our deen and what we believe as Muslims.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because it's almost like as if this your whole relationship weighs upon this one day. So it's like if you don't get anything for your loved one on that day, it's almost like you don't love them, because there is that expectation that you should. But it's really important to ensure that we have something that's obviously a lot more long term. What's also very important about Valentine's Day is the commercialization about. We just saw in the feature clip just a while back, you know, the merchandise, the manufacturing that's devoted to Valentine's Day. And I actually want to pose this question to Sister Naseem: is Valentine's Day just another ploy by companies to make money like other festivals within the West or outside of the West?
Basically, I've just been doing a bit of research on that. And, you know, the UK market alone for Valentine's Day is £1 billion. £1 billion for one day. So, and 21 million stems of roses are sold on this one day. Wow. So think about the amount of money and the amount of pressure that goes on to sales assistants, to advertising people, to, again, you know, husbands in particular who think, well, if I don't buy my wife roses and everybody else has been given roses, you know, it's a bit of like keeping up with the Joneses thing as well. So a lot of pressure.
Well, that's a really interesting point, that it's not just the pressure on the couple themselves, but even upon the people actually involved in Valentine's Day. It's not really a sort of two-way relationship. You've got the relationship with the people driving the economy, you know, the salespeople. So what do you think about that, Sister Ayaan?
Oh my goodness, you know what? When I think of Valentine's Day, I just think, oh God, it's such a sad day.
Yeah.
Sad for both people involved, for the man and the woman. Sad because the man feels that he has to get something in order to make his spouse happy on this one particular day, because if he doesn't, he is going to get nagged, or he's going to get the silent treatment. All hell is going to break loose. And then for the woman, it's the only day that she feels validated within her relationship. And I just think that, you know, if we look at the example of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was one narration from Aisha radiallahu anha where she said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the most beloved deed to Allah is the most regular and constant, even though it were little. So the same thing applies even within a marriage, because at the end of the day, you're there as a mercy between one another, isn't it? To show that rahmah, to show that love. And to be honest, you know, buying someone a box of chocolates, you know, at the very last second, or getting flowers from the petrol shop at the very last second, doesn't really show how much you love the other person.